Hello everybody, my name is Piotr and today I'll be giving a talk about how we developed our own way to store game design and game vision related information all in one unified place. This will be a short presentation that will cover the basics and will give you some hints on how you can create your own game design board. So, my name is Peter, and I'm CEO of Dreamstorm Studios. We are a studio localized here in Poland, and we've been working on a couple of games over the past 4 years. And we do both work for hire and our own projects, and often we have to quickly iterate on the game design vision, the game design documents to make sure that the people that work with us have the same vision as us. So I'll start with going through some basic information about GDD, what we like and don't like about the GDD, and then what is a game design board? Why do we use it? What are the pros and cons of it? And then I'll show you how the board actually evolves during the development process. So, as you probably all know, game design document is a lengthy Word document that is all about the game vision, the game mechanics. It's very text heavy. But in smaller companies, it's usually the case that it's hard to keep the game design document up to date. It might be that you have your new team member coming in, he gets the game design document and starts asking questions, and you go, no, this is not up to date, sorry, we'll brief you on the details. And when you have to quickly scale up team from like 3 to 30 in 2 months, that's just not that's not sustainable, right? Smaller games may even not have a GDD. Everything is in the designer's head, and basically the game development process is more of a chit-chat about the details that the game designer would like in the game. So when you see a block of text, it can get pretty tedious over the time when you go through like 40, 50 pages of text. And that's why we would like to introduce you to another way to do this. Because even though it's very popular, even though everybody that works in game industry know what the game document is, and it's easy to convey various ideas, once the project gets bigger, you probably would go ahead and divide it into feature-specific documents. But this might bring chaos in the long run, especially if you're doing like Word files and you have 0.1, 0.2, final 1, final 2, and you have a bunch of documents that are not really in sync with each other. The key problem that we found out for ourselves is that we didn't have a single source of truth. So when the data is all around the drive, the documents, it might be that some relevant informations are changed in one document, but not updated in the other, so that teams get actually different information based on if you're a programmer or an artist. We also see that GDD is mostly for programmers and designers because there is the infamous moving an image in Word nightmare. Yeah, it can bring down the whole document, and we want to have our graphics and our vision for the art coupled together with the details of implementation. So, over the time, we evolved from storing our brainstorming notes to storing the whole game vision in the document. The game design board is a board that can be created using whiteboard apps, Miro, FigJam, Mural. There are quite a lot of them currently. And it's a living document. It changes as the development progresses. Once you find out that you want to brainstorm a new feature, you do it in the same place that you store all your relevant information. So converting those brainstorm notes and charts and sticky notes into a comprehensive document gets really easy and really fast. It's also a very good way to showcase a vision for a heavy art-heavy game, where the music, the art, the movement, the mechanics are all very coupled together, more of an experience than a game. And if you need to reference a lot of multimedia videos, images, audio, etc. So here is an example of such one board. It's a pretty chunky boy, I would say, and it has everything that is needed for anybody that joins the team to understand what the game is, how it's supposed to look like, and what are the next steps in the development process. It's it's divided into sections, like vertically, and also by using colors, and it's meant to be written from left to the right. So here is a document for a project that was 1 year in development, and it basically describes everything except for the row numbers. And this is where we go to the pros and cons of the GDB. It is a single source of truth. If you together with your designer or programmer, get to the point that, yeah, we have to change that, you only need to update one place, one document. And this makes it so that any agile projects are much more simple to maintain in the long run. We like to use the show and don't tell mentality. So instead of going into a call for like 10 minutes and describing what you want to see in the game, you can quickly set a number of references and have them all stored in one place in order to get the vision through to your team. One other thing that you cannot really do with Word document is that you can create arrows, links, like grid of connected information, so that the whole thing grows organically. The cons is that you still need to get some stuff to Word or Excel or spreadsheets or whatever, because getting like game design tables and data in Miro can be pretty resource heavy. This also applies to scenarios, dialogues. This probably will be linked in your Miro. And the other thing is that keeping it simple and organized might be difficult, especially for the people that didn't really worked in this, worked in any whiteboard app before. You need to get used to it in order to create a very clear vision and very clear board for your team. And another thing is that it's not really a common way to store this kind of information, so your outside partners might get confused. You need to show them how to use this tool in order to work with them on it. And whiteboard apps and tools do not always run fast on all machines. This can be leveraged by downloading the app, but still, if you put like, I don't know, 1,000 images as a references, that might get pretty slow. So we established that game design boards are best for projects that take up to 2 years of development time, require a team of up to 20 people, and they are especially useful for companies that have troubles with maintaining a unified vision for the whole game. So if it happens at your team that a programmer does something and he shows the game designer the result and the game designer says, no, I didn't mean that, you were supposed to do something else, this might be a thing for you. Also, if you are in pre-production part of the development cycle, it might be very easy to implement this solution, as the brainstorming and the sticky notes are already there, and then you just build on top of that. When not to use the GDB, if your game is a cookie clicker and you need a lot of maths and not that much of artistic unification across the screens, you should probably use a standard game design document. If you expect your project to rely heavily on math and data, also not a great choice. And if you don't have any troubles with your current solution, don't change it. So, how do we approach the evolution from the blank canvas to a wholly designed comprehensive document? First step is to use it as a brainstorming notebook. So you gather your team, you go on and think about any features that you want in your game. You make notes, you make sticky notes, you add some references. You basically use it as a place to just unleash your creativity. And then you can quickly put an annotation on a frame on it and say, hey, this is the part where we talked about visual style of our game. And during this presentation, in the next slides, you will see how our game design board for Naru, our upcoming game, was created. So those are some of the first brainstorming parts where we basically put some screenshots from other games and we marked what we like, what we don't like. And after that, we went ahead and categorized those notes. So we tried to, as we went on and created more and more data, more and more ideas and features, we organized it, structured it a little bit, and divide it into ideas, notes, tasks for the future calls. And we came up with this kind of messy but still divided document. So at this point of time, we were entering the prototyping. So each one of those frames is related to one part of the prototyping phase. So prototype of movement, prototype of art, prototype of different mechanics, different puzzles, and they all share a part in this board. After this, we went ahead and started to clean up all the information. We already had it there. We just needed some cleanup, some verification, framing, and as we went on, we also written some general details like unique value proposition, game pitches, and other game references that we like, that we would like our game to be similar to. Hierarchy of information is very important. If you used whiteboard apps, you know that it can get pretty confusing when you have a lot of different people working at the same board. So unifying the whole information and the looks of it is very important. We use colors in our boards, and we also use shapes that mean different things depending on where they are. So after we went ahead and structured and organized all the information that was result of the brainstorming process, we came up with sort of leveled design for the board, with each level being about graphics, about mechanics, about accessibility, about general information. And as you progressed right, you get into more and more details or more and more frames that describe this one specific component. We also added a table of contents. So you are able to link out to other frames and have a menu like in a Word document that you can use to quickly skip to different parts of the board and to move around it very swiftly. So, a few more tips on how to read and organize a game design board. Left to the right with the most important and general information to the left, and go into the details on the right. Place the most. We usually, when we work on our projects, it might happen that something that it's one frame, one part of this vertical slice, of this horizontal slice, suddenly becomes a whole level on its own once you get into the details of it. So we recommend to align your all topic-related frames horizontally, so that so that artists have their own playground and the programmers can think about features and the flows, like technical flows or implementation details, architecture, in their own space. And one more thing is do not be afraid to stir frame into frame, because sometimes you need to both convey the general information as well as include all the details and numbers and tables. So here's an example like a close-up of one of those frames. At the top we have the header, and then from left to right we have frames, one per each topic, and then within that we have information that we wanted to convey. So some people also have problems reading those boards because, as I said, it's not a usual way to convey the information. So using table of contents or naming your frames. If you zoom out in most of the tools, you can see still the frame name in its full glory. So naming your frames and just reading the frames names is very quick way to read it. And it depends on how you handle the nested frames, but the general idea, left to the right, top to the bottom, is still there. It's best to learn on examples. So here we have couples of examples of different parts for the game that we have in our board. So starting with the basic core game loop, it's very easy to create in Miro. It's also easy to create in other tools, but here we have the whole package. Then mechanics, together with the details on which button on the pad does what, with how do we want the mechanics to work, and what references do we want to add. In games, if it comes to, for example, an audio, here we have a whole set of references together with the text that describes it, and you can play it without leaving this one tool. And we even included some details like file naming for the whole team as they progresses down the board and they read more and more. They also get introduction to the basic rules of the project itself. So, as I mentioned, there are some cons to this solution. For example, with the sharing the board to partners, you can always export the board to PDF and send it over this way. In many cases, downloading the desktop version, as I mentioned, really helps the performance, especially on Macs and MacBooks. And in order to not get lost in the process, it's best to have several rules for the team that they have to obey in order to keep the board clean. So we prepared an example board that you might have, that I showed you in form of a publicly available board. So this one is from like half a year ago, stripped of any confidential or the information that we don't want to share yet. But you are free to look around to see how it looks like and to explore it on your own. I'll give you a second to take a photo or... Yeah. And in summary, GDB is a more visual and unified way to convey the game vision to the team. It's best to use it on small and medium-sized projects that change fast and don't last that long. And you can use the three-step method to implement the GDB. First you brainstorm, then you organize it, and then you unify the look and the style of all the information. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Oh, there we go.
First of all, thank you very much for the talk. It was very interesting. I was wondering if you're using Miro or whatever whiteboard app you use also very much for planning, or is it mostly content, well, basically as a GDD, or is it also like, hey, these are exactly what you sort of mentioned, like the next steps that we're going to take?
We do it on a very high level. In some of the projects, we had this release plan, or the feature plan, or even like a feature mind map, starting with, okay, so here is the basic feature that we want to implement, and then branching out into different features that later on were granted their own frame in the board. So high-level planning, yes, but doing tasks and writing down exact milestones, no.
Thanks for this talk. I've been using Miro for the past year, but like you mentioned, I also was working on smaller projects. Now I'm moving to a AAA monstrosity, and my question is, do you have any experience or saw people trying to use that on a monstrous project like that and how it works?
Yes, I know.
Is it viable? Most?
Yeah. I know that bigger studios also use Miro for their projects, but they don't really store the information there, only the brainstorming notes, then they later on convey into a Word document to then deliver the document to the other team.
Thanks for the talk. I'm also using Miro, and I'm also planning to make a game design board. I was wondering, how do you introduce this way of showing the game design document to your team, probably with a kind of short presentation? What's the most important things to tell them, to having them to understand?
I would say that if you had problems with your like game vision and or game designers didn't really update the GDD, I would heavily put high, make it so that the single point of truth is very important to them. So they would never get lost again in their work. And like nobody likes when their work is wasted, right? And I would say this is the core feature of this approach that it makes it accessible for the team. Okay. So, thank you. Yep. Okay.
Thanks. I have a question. You said that you need to organize the GDB, of course. And do you have one specific person who organizes it, or is it a team effort? And if it's a team effort, isn't it chaotic?
Usually the lead artist or the lead designer is the person that is responsible for that. And we also have technical lead that helps to, from time to time, if it comes to programming, he helps to keep the diagrams, the programming stuff clean. Usually it's the game father or the main game designer, the guy that comes with an idea that is responsible for keeping it clean. Okay, so now I think that's it. Thank you very much.